Hello, howdy, what is up, people? Hope y'all are doing well. Feliz Navidad, Merry Christmas, Happy Wednesday. It's not even Christmas, but it is a Wednesday for me. Today, actually, it is Wednesday at 3:46 p.m. for me right now. So if it's not a Wednesday at 3:46 p.m. for you, I still hope it is a great day whenever you're listening to this. Hopefully, you are having an awesome day. And if you're not, then I'm sorry. I'm not sure there's nothing else I can do except keep listening. Maybe you'll turn your not great day into a great day. Today we're going to talk about the topic of, are they Christian enough to date, so to speak? Like, are they, like that person, that girl, that boy, are they Christian enough, whatever that means, Christian enough? Are they Christian enough to date? So we're going to talk about that for a little bit, so stay tuned. It's going to be good. But first, we're just coming off of Valentine's Day too. Like, Valentine is February 15th for me as well. Slurp. And a BT Dubs. This is on YouTube and Spotify. So if you're listening right now on Spotify, then you can't really see me physically. But appreciate you hopping on. If you're on YouTube right now, maybe this is more interactive. You can see me sip some coffee, so it's gorgeous. But today we're talking about, are they Christian enough to date? And I think just that word in general, or that phrase, are they Christian enough? It's a question we ask ourselves, like mentally. We may not ask our pastor, we may not ask our friends, we may not even pray about it, but it's like a mental process we go through. It's like a mental checklist, so to speak. Like, hey, are there any Jesus red flags? Does this person love Jesus enough, or are they Christian enough? And we like mentally think that through before we engage in dating them or initiating a dating relationship. And we're just coming off of Valentine's Day. Today is February the 15th for me. So whenever this comes out, it's probably not February the 15th. But we're just coming off of Valentine's Day. And just that topic of deconstructing it, so to speak. Like that phrase, are they Christian enough? I want to deconstruct that a little bit with you guys and talk through that. Because, hold up. Oh, that was a false burp. Sorry, y'all. Coffee makes me burp. I want to deconstruct that a little bit because I think that's something our culture and our generation, even churches, have thrown that out there as, hey, making sure you're equally. We say that phrase. Like, we may not say you have to be Christian enough. We just call it equally yoked, right? And we say, hey, make sure you're equally yoked. Make sure they love Jesus. Make sure you love Jesus, and then go after it. But make sure they're Christian enough. But that phrase, making sure they're Christian enough, I want to deconstruct that a little bit because it puts you in a position to compare yourself and your walk against somebody else's, right? If I'm going to a girl, so I'm a dude. If you guys didn't know by now, I'm Josh. I'm a dude, 23 years old, and I'm about to talk to a girl, and I'm like, hey, what up, shawty? How you doing? I'm probably not going to say that. But if I'm pursuing this girl, and I'm asking myself, hey, are you Christian enough? I'm not going to ask her that. That's awkward. That's probably a red flag. Guys, don't do that. Don't just go up to a girl and say, hey, are you Christian enough? You probably get slapped in the name of Jesus. But if I'm mentally thinking like, hey, is this girl Christian enough? Then I'm putting myself in a position to compare my Jesus walk, my race, to hers. And I'm either going to devalue myself, or this is what we often do, is put myself on this Christian pedestal, thinking like, hey, I'm great. I'm holy. I'm awesome. Girl, you better step your game up. So I want to deconstruct that phrase a little bit because honestly, it's not that biblical. Just saying, hey, are they Christian enough? And then comparing your walk with somebody else's. I think Paul gives us a great analogy, or it's either a analogy or metaphor. I failed English twice. I don't know the difference between a analogy and a metaphor, but it's one of those. In 1 Corinthians, Paul talks about running your race. Like, hey, run your race as if you were aiming for first place. Nobody runs a race hoping to get last place, but you run a race aiming for first place, right? Like, if you were to run a race, or if you're about to race a friend, NASCAR, they race cars. The Super Bowl just happened. They are racing. Everybody races for first place. Like, you don't race and you don't line up on this race like, hey guys, I'm ready to go. I've been working hard. I've been training hard, but I'm shooting for about sixth place. First place, overrated. I'm aiming for sixth place. Like, nah, dog, we don't do that. We aim for first place. And that's what Paul talks about with our Jesus walk, our Christian walk. Like, hey, get on your track, stay in your lane, and you just keep your eyes on the prize. Run for first place. So I think when you take that, the idea of asking yourself and evaluating other people, like, hey, are they Christian enough? Man, just focus on yourself, right? You need to run your race. Don't worry about anybody else's race. You run your race for first place, and then you start to evaluate, like, hey, I'm running my race. I'm focused. I'm locked in. My eyes are on the prize of Jesus. The day that Jesus returns is the finish line. And I'm going to run my race as hard as I can to advance the kingdom, to go and make disciples, to show some love, to be the salt and light of the earth. That is my race, right? And that's your race, too. We all have the same calling. That's your race. So I think we should all first stay in our lane and run our race instead of focusing on comparing ourselves with somebody else. Like me as a dude, comparing myself, like, hey, is this girl, is she Christian enough? Like, hey, no, I ain't got to worry about that. I'm just going to run my race. But then there are, I don't want that to come off wrong. Like, yes, it's definitely good to evaluate people that you want to date. Like, that is healthy, crucial, and biblical, but don't do it from the point of comparing yourself to them, right? That's the main nugget there. Like, take that chicken nugget, dip that mug into some barbecue sauce, because Chick-fil-A sauce is overrated, but dip that into some barbecue sauce, right? When you're evaluating people to date, it should not be from the heart posture of comparing yourself, from either devaluing yourself or putting yourself on this holier-than-thou pedestal, right? But Jesus also talks about it in Matthew chapter 7, right? Hey, you can judge a tree by the fruit it bears, right? Don't get fooled for a wolf in sheep's clothing. Like, it may look dope on the outside and cute and cuddly and just, amazing on the outside, but on the inside, they're a wolf. But you can know that by the fruit they produce. So instead of asking yourself, hey, is this person Christian enough to date? I think we should go back to the phrase of equally yoked and knowing what the heck that means, right? Knowing what the heck being equally yoked actually means. It's in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14, talking about being equally yoked. So if you're asking yourself, like, hey, is this girl Christian enough? Is this dude Christian enough? I think you can take that phrase, throw it in the trash, and just talk about, hey, if I'm going to enter into a relationship with this person, can I be equally yoked with them? And this is what the Bible says. It says, 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14, do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers, for what partnership has righteousness and lawlessness? So he says, hey, do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. And being equally yoked, well, first, a yoke. It's not an egg yolk. For me, for about 5 years, I thought he was talking about eggs for some reason, like scrambled eggs. But it's not. It's not about egg yolks. If you take two like oxen or horses or something, like back in Bible days, when they were working the fields, they would have ox. And they would have this big wooden, if you're on YouTube, you can see me using my hands right now, but if you're on Spotify, you can just kind of visualize it. Like, picture two big oxen, like the animals, the oxen, like just big and strong, and you're either plowing a field, you're pulling a wagon, like they're doing something, but then they have this big wooden, almost like beam or bar around both of their necks, connected to whatever they're pulling, and that's called the yoke. Like that big wooden thing going across the two oxen to hold them together so they push and pull equally. That's what the yoke is. It is two oxen, is the device that two oxen use to pull something, like either it's the wagon, it's the farming tool, or whatever it was. But that yoke, right, if Paul said, hey, do not be unequally yoked, and if you take what a yoke actually is, it's two people pulling something together, or two oxen having this wooden beam across them, pulling that wagon together, just like Christians, right? Me and this girl, we have this wooden beam connecting us, and we're pulling something together, or we're going in the same direction, right? But if you take the oxen, for example, if they're not going in the same direction and they're connected by this beam, if one's going left and the other one's going right, they're not going to go anywhere, right? They're going to fight each other a little bit, and they're going to harm themselves, right? To be equally yoked, those oxen, they have to go in the same direction, on the same speed, at the same time, or somebody's going 100% and somebody's going 60%, it's going to cause that wagon to fall off a little bit. So being equally yoked, right, is, hey, two believers coming together, going the same speed at the same time in the same direction, right? Running your race, like we talked about earlier, running your race. So saying, hey, is this dude Christian enough? Can I be equally yoked with them? Like, hey, if I'm running my race, Are they running at the same speed, at the same time, aiming for the same prize of Jesus coming back? But you can evaluate that by the fruit they produce that Jesus talks about in Matthew 7, right? How do they treat other people? That's a great thing to evaluate. But when you evaluate it, don't do it when they're around people, because everybody can put on a front when they're on a stage, when they're around a lot of people. They can definitely put on a front. I worked at a summer camp as a camp counselor in 2022, over the summer for 3 months. And hold on, there she is. Coffee break sip. I worked at a summer camp in 2022, and it was a bunch of college students living together for 3 months over the summer. Not like in the same room together. That's weird. Different rooms, guys with guys, girls with girls, all that good stuff. Side hugs only. But there was this rule, like, hey, don't date. Like, if you date and you break up halfway through the summer, it's going to be awkward. But they gave us this great principle of waiting until out, because, you know, you put a bunch of Christian guys and a bunch of Christian girls together over the summer, serving Jesus, something's going to happen. But they said, hey, wait till after camp ends to see if they're the real them. Like, is it just the camp version of them? Like serving Jesus, loving on kids, being with people, is that just the camp version of them because of the environment they're in? Or is that truly who they are? So if you take that, I think we can take that principle and just apply it to life, right? Hey, is this person I'm attracted to, or I'm figuring out, like, hey, where are they at with Jesus? Are they just with Jesus because of the environment that they're in? Like maybe at church or on the mission trip or at a camp, serving at a camp or serving in some type of ministry capacity. Are they just representing Jesus well because of the surroundings and atmospheres they're in? Or are they going to be that same person when nobody else is looking? Because that's truly what we need to evaluate. Because when you're dating somebody, right, there ain't nobody else there. If there's other people dating you, like, that's weird. When you're dating that boy or that girl, it's just a one-on-one thing. If you got other people there, that's kind of weird. But it's just a one-on-one thing, right? There's no stage. There's no popularity contest. There's no one trying to press each other. It's simply, hey, you and your true character and them and their true character. So figuring out who they truly are when they're outside of that environment or atmosphere that they would commonly represent Jesus well in, right? Making sure you're not getting caught up with a wolf in sheep's clothing, like looking good on the outside, but kind of hot trash on the inside, or red flags, so to speak. So it's super, super important. Figure out, how do they treat people? Like, hey, are they treating people with compassion and kindness and love? Do they have a gentle spirit? Where's their heart at? Can I be equally yoked to this person? Like, how are they running their race when nobody else is looking? How is that person striving after Jesus when maybe they don't have to do it? Maybe it's not on social media, right? I think on social media, you also got to be careful. Man, we'll keep it real here, right? Because a lot of people can put the Bible verse in the bio. They can make a couple reels representing Jesus. You know, they can post a worship song on TikTok and on Instagram and TikTok. Like, they can look like they're following Jesus. When they're serving in a ministry area, they can look like they're following Jesus. At school, they can look like they're following Jesus. And those are all great things, but just make sure that same person in those atmospheres and environments is the same person they are when nobody else is looking. Because that's the true character test, right? Who are you when nobody's looking? Like, hey, do the way they treat their family and their parents, is it the same way they're treating, you know, the church members or friends that they're with? Or even evaluating, like, hey, who are the friend groups that they hang around? Like, does this person hang around good friend groups that represent Jesus, like good community groups? Like, hey, who's their playground and who's their playmates? Like, who do they commonly hang around with? How do they treat them? What kind of words do they use? Like, are they dropping F-bombs every day? Like, what kind of words do they use? How do they dress? Are they dressing to reflect Christ, or are they dressing to, you know, play offense and show some stuff? No, go. Quick tip, guys, if you're going to the gym or if you're going to the beach, like, yeah, maybe cool to show off the guns a little bit, but play defense, go full coverage there. It's a lot more humbling. It's kind of dope. Go full coverage. That's just a side nugget. You can take that into some barbecue sauce. Play defense, not offense with your clothes. Go full coverage. But that's just a tangent. So I think going back to that original point of, are they Christian enough, right? Don't do that or mentally go through that with that comparison aspect. Like, hey, I need to compare myself and my Jesus walk with them. Because then you're comparing yourself like, hey, I got 8 Jesus points. You only got 6 Jesus points. You need to catch up to me before we do. Like, nah, dog, it don't work like that. is saying, hey, are you going to be equally yoked? Are you chasing after that same race? Are you running that race at the same speed at the same time with the same direction behind closed doors? Everybody can run a race when everybody's looking. When you got a crowd cheering you on, it's a lot more easier to run, right? Like if I was running on a track, or I'm about to run a 10K this weekend. No lie, y'all. I might die halfway through. But I'm running a 10K this Saturday. And being around other people and runners in the race and have an audience and a crowd cheer us on, it's going to motivate me a lot more to not want to die at like mile 4 and start throwing up. But if I was like on the treadmill all alone, am I still going to run those? Am I going to still run at the same speed? Right? Nobody's looking. Nobody's there to cheer me on. I don't have any runners to compete against. Am I going to run at the same speed? Right? So seeing, hey, how is this girl? How is that boy? How's that dude? How's that man of God running their race when nobody is looking? That will tell you everything they need to know. But then don't be dumb. I love y'all. I don't know if I can say the word dumb, but just don't be dumb. Like, hey, if you see how they're running their race, don't try to ignore it, right? Don't try to justify, oh, well, they did this because of that, or they're just going through this phase, and it's just a season of life that they're listening to this bad music because this happened in their home. Like, yo, don't put yourself in that bed to lay in. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't put yourself in that situation just to stumble. Figure out how is this person running their race when nobody's looking. And if they're running their race with integrity, they're chasing after Jesus, they're still serving the way they would with people around them. They're still, they're not listening to the provocative music, maybe dropping a couple F-bombs, maybe playing offense instead of defense. Like, yo, then get after that. Like, let's go. Like, that is awesome. That is a solid man of God or a woman of God. But don't get fooled by a wolf in sheep's clothing. And that's something I just wanted to talk about today. Coming off of Valentine's Day, right? It's easy to get caught up with wolves in sheep's clothing. Like, hey, this person looks great on the outside, or they look great around people. But you get into that relationship in 3 months, you're like, hey, this isn't the dude I met, or this isn't the girl I met. Like, what happened to the girl I met? You fell in love to the camp version of them. As we talked about that camp, you fell in love with the camp version of them and not the true them. So I want to encourage you guys, man, protect yourself, guard your heart, right? I mean, shoot your shot, go on a date, like for sure, shoot your shot, guard your heart. But figure out, like, hey, is this person, how are they running the race behind closed doors? Nobody else is looking, no audience, no cameras, no social media platforms, just them behind closed doors. Where's their heart at? Where's their character at? Cheers. Thank you for tuning in to an episode of our Three Strands podcast. Hopefully you just equipped yourself a little bit to date a little bit smarter, or even if you're not dating now, but just to prepare yourself, or even if you are dating now, evaluate how you are dating now, regardless of where you're at. Just a quick tool to put in your toolbox, a nugget to dip in the sauce. Like, hey, how's this person running their race? So appreciate you guys tuning in. Check out our podcast for other episodes. Check out our Instagram at Three Strands Group. So you can follow us. You can join us. We want you guys to find some biblical community. So follow us on Instagram at Three Strands Group. And peace out. See you next time.